A gray biological egg fell from the sky, and a parasitic larvae crawled out of it. It quickly targeted a sleeping hunk, accelerating up his body and burrowing into his brain. Soon, a hot DJ chick came to invite him to dance, but however, she called he wouldn't wake up. Assuming he had drunk too much, she moved on to find another hunk to play with, only to have the sleeping hunk wake up not long after she left. He walked towards the dance floor with a blank look on his face.
오빠, 이제 술 좀 깼어?
Slowly turned his head to look at her, and suddenly his whole head split open into 4 tentacles, slicing the hot DJ chick in half. Then the dance floor became his battlefield as he waded into the crowd and activated slaughter mode, killing freely to the intense music. Soo-in, the protagonist, was a supermarket cashier who often dealt with various difficult customers. One day a male customer picked up a box of meat without a price tag. When Soo-in merely suggested he exchange it, he got emotionally charged, accusing her as a service person for dictating the customer's actions. After glimpsing the tall security guard nearby, he muted down, saying, "Watch out, I'll annihilate you all," and left. Soo-in thought he was simply joking and didn't take it seriously. However, on her way home on her electric bike after work, that man hit her with a car and knocked her to the side of the road. He then pulled out a knife and stabbed at her. Soo-in struggled, flinging him away and, in turn, fleeing into the fields using the trees as cover, but she didn't get far before she fainted. It was then that an egg fell in front of her. The man with the knife searched the fields for Soo-in, swearing to cut her in half, but just as he approached, his body split in half. When Soo-in woke up, she was in the hospital. The person in charge of investigating the case was her uncle, Cheol-min. Soo-in only remembered being stabbed several times and running for her life. She didn't know anything else. Learning that the man was dead, she was taken aback. He was clearly chasing her, so how could he suddenly die? Even stranger was the fact that there weren't any wounds on Soo-in's waist. Her uncle felt she might have been in shock and her memories were chaotic. He told her to rest and then left the hospital room, but in her hospital bed, Soo-in's mind was filled with fragments of her struggling in pain. Fast forward several months, a rich second-generation man happened to meet a beautiful woman at a bar and drove his luxury sports car to her home. When he arrived at her place, he was surprised to find that the beautiful woman lived in a rundown factory. Before they had a chance to get intimate, several brawny men came out and started to blame the rich man for having a lot of alcohol in his system, suggesting it would be difficult to digest if consumed. The beautiful woman explained that if he kept alive a little longer, the alcohol would fade. It was at that moment that the rich man realized something was wrong. Remembering his taekwondo training, he prepared to show them a thing or two. However, the brawny man showed no emotion, muttering about knocking him out and tying him up. The rich second generation reached for his phone to call the police, but the woman's face suddenly transformed into a carnivorous plant, scaring him into falling and screaming. In the nick of time, a smoke bomb broke a window and landed between the crowd. The rich playboy took the opportunity to scream and run away. The parasites followed him because, by this time, the parasites had been exposed to human society. They were no longer at the top of the food chain, and within a few seconds, the 3 parasites were killed by fully armed soldiers. Only the last 2 parasites resisted stubbornly due to their geographic advantage, and the soldiers quickly brought a cannon-shaped apparatus, launching out a specially designed wire mesh that captured one of them. The only remaining parasite was alarmed and escaped through a window, but while running, it sensed a kindred spirit in a van. After slicing open the van door, it found the other contained in a chair with a metal helmet on. At that moment, a female cop fired several shots at it, forcing the parasitic creature to abandon its companion and escape by jumping onto a tall building. It turned out she wanted to capture parasites alive so they could be trained as hunting dogs to catch their own kind. The female cop proceeded with her subordinates into the factory, finding victims' clothing scattered all over the place. A cold storage room even stored large amounts of human bodies, with a strange symbol on the wall. Facing questions from her subordinates, she explained that this place was a parasite organization.
놈들이 조직을 만들었어.
On the other hand, Soo-in returned to her peaceful life after being discharged from the hospital. One day, she heard a strange rumble, seemingly coming from an uncle who had not yet boarded the bus. Once he was on the bus, he stared at Soo-in without blinking. She got scared and quickly asked the driver to stop. Relieved that he didn't follow her off the bus, she thought she was safe. But unexpectedly, after she got off and got into another car, she saw his figure again. This time, the uncle even brought a companion. The two of them chased her into a junkyard, even complimenting that she manifested like a human well. But they suspected she was different from other parasites and needed final confirmation. The uncle's face split open as he swung at Soo-in, but she chopped off a small piece of his tentacle. Half of Soo-in's face also transformed into a long tentacle. After confirming that she was a parasite, the uncle changed back to his human form. The uncle invited her to join the organization he belonged to, the Rebirth Society. Since humans were hunting them down, they had to pull together to survive. Their conversation was overheard by a man hiding in the junkyard. He tried to sneak away but stepped on a plastic bottle and was chased down by Soo-in, who intended to silence him. The man explained that the woman earlier was his sister. He followed her out recently when he noticed something was off about her, but he didn't expect to stumble upon that scene. Soo-in checked his ID and found out his name was Kang-woo. She threatened him not to reveal what he had seen. No matter where he ran, she would hunt him down and kill him. Later, Kang-woo told Soo-in everything he knew about the parasites. They sensed each other through a kind of brainwave, but Soo-in seemed to be somehow different from them. The next day, Soo-in woke up to find a note on her table. It seemed that at the time of the parasite's invasion, her injuries were severe. The parasite had to treat her wounds and consume her brain, and the intended mutation was interrupted, resorting to the initiation of a total body homogenization. As a result, Soo-in's injuries were healed, and the parasite did not fully take over her brain. She ended up being a mutant, a hybrid between a human and a parasite. After testing, it was discovered that within a day, it could only occupy her consciousness for 15 minutes, so it only occupies her brain once when Soo-in is in danger to protect the body they both share. However, on the other side, the Grey Division of the police had already developed a method to search for parasites within the crowd. They captured parasites lived to use as a radar to search for other parasitic creatures, dubbing these creatures hounds. Soo-in's uncle learned of the parasite invasion from Jun Kyung of the Grey Team, which made him suspicious of his niece. Because months ago, Soo-in narrowly escaped from a lunatic's knife without a single scratch, but the attacker was literally split in half. There were several ways to identify parasites, one of which was that the hair of the infested humans could squirm like worms. When Cheolmin visited Soo-in, he used an excuse to pluck out one of her white strands of hair, confirming that she was not infected. However, he was unaware that Soo-in was in a half-parasite state. Soon, those two parasites found Soo-in again. The head of their organization, a priest, had taken an interest in Soo-in, who was said to act very human-like, and wanted to meet her. She reluctantly got into their car, and Kang-woo, who was watching from a distance, noticed this. His sister had recently disappeared, and he suspected she had been killed by the parasitic organization. After Soo-in spared him last time, he had been tracking his parasite-infected sister. When they arrived at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts, they found many humans who had been parasitized gathered there. The priest began by playing a video. It was the man who had escaped from the attack by the Grey Division. Before his death, he recorded that humans had one of their kind and were using this creature as a radar to search for them. Being found by humans was inevitable. If they didn't establish the star plan, they would be hunted down and killed one by one. The priest claimed that the parasites executed the instinct to parasitize just after birth, since one of their kind had wreaked havoc at a music concert, exposing their identity. This event accelerated human research on parasites and initiated a massacre against them. It is the humans on this planet that are the most brutal and extreme individuals. Unlike parasites, which prey on humans out of instinct, humans often derive pleasure from massacring their own kind. In some respects, they are the species closest to the definition of demon. Now that they have established this organization, it's to utilize each and everyone's talents. It's only by combining all their forces can they evade the human massacre. Meanwhile, Kang-woo had also followed to the vicinity. In the room he entered, there were sealed human corpses hanging all over, with a parasite guard patrolling constantly, preparing to escape. Kang-woo suddenly noticed a corpse, his sister, who he had relied heavily on. As he had suspected, she had been killed by the parasites and made into food. Unable to restrain his anger, Kang-woo picked up a knife and attacked the patrolling parasite. The noise from their fight immediately drew the attention of everyone in the assembly. The priest told them not to fight individually but to show their strengths and kill the humans tracking them. Soo-in saw that the priest had noticed her and had to follow them outside. After killing the guard, Kang-woo fled the factory but encountered the gang members chasing him. As the parasites followed him, the captured Kang-woo hurriedly warned them of the monsters. But the gang members refused to believe him. They pulled out a butcher knife and prepared to drive away the appearing weak and sickly pests. The scene quickly turned into a massacre, with the parasites revealing their true forms and killing among the crowd. Kangwoo made his escape amidst the chaos and ran into Soo-in. They jumped into a car, attempting to escape. To their surprise, the uncle transformed into a winged creature and dived towards the car on the road from the sky. He swung his tentacles, lifted the car roof, and forced Soo-in into a brawl on the road. After a round of fight with no clear winner, the uncle returned to his human form. He didn't understand why Soo-in, being of the same kind, would aid humans. She was more dangerous than those parasites who were captured alive. He needed to report her threat level back to the priest. Just as he was taking off, he was impaled in the chest by Soo-in's tentacle. Once he died completely, the parasite within Soo-in also fell into a deep sleep. What Soo-in didn't know was that her file from a few months ago was now in front of Jun Kyung of the Grey Division. A woman shopping at a supermarket lost sight of her husband for a moment, only for his head to suddenly split open, cutting off her ear in a second. Watching her transformed husband go on a killing spree in the supermarket, the woman tried to sneak off, but then spotted a crying girl calling out for her mom. The girl's cries immediately attracted the monstrous creature. The woman rushed forward, saving the girl with a flying tackle. Then, noticing herself in the supermarket's detergent aisle, she evaded tentacles, grabbed a bottle, and fled into the adjacent refrigerator. The monster pursued and followed her in. Faced with the tossed detergent bottle, it instinctively cut it in half, only to be drenched in chemical fluid. The woman grabbed the chance to escape and shut the refrigerator door. Seeing her husband transforming into a bloodthirsty monster inside the refrigerator, she was choked up with tears. Jun Kyung, who was filled with hatred for the parasite that had killed her husband, turned into the leader of a special unit dedicated to hunting parasites. Several months later, she used the parasite in her late husband as a tool for hunting other parasites. Having escaped the parasite's pursuit, Soo-in and Kangwoo decided to notify the police of the parasite hive location. Soo-in thought of her uncle, so Kangwoo used a public phone to tell Cheolman everything. However, he did not reveal their identities. Cheolman discussed with his subordinates and decided to report the matter to the Grey Division. Coincidentally, Jun Kyung was intending to contact him about Soo-in's case from a few months ago. Cheolman, knowing she was suspecting Soo-in, stated that he had already pulled out a hair strand to confirm, and then informed her about the parasite gathering. Jun Kyung, who had suspicions about the parasites forming an organization for a while, immediately led her team to the outlying factory. Upon arrival though, they found the place deserted except for some human corpses that hadn't been moved in time. But Cheolman found Soo-in's keychain on the ground. Carrying the keychain, he found Soo-in and asked her what exactly happened in the factory. Unbeknownst to them, Jun Kyung had followed Cheolman there. Using her parasitized husband, she sensed a parasite inside. It would take 10 minutes for the main team to arrive, so she took her shotgun and went alone. At this point, Soo-in had also sensed the brain waves of her kind, and she assumed that they were being pursued and wanted to leave. However, Cheolman wasn't willing to let her off without an answer, and he held Kangwoo hostage to pressure her. That's when he realized that Kangwoo was the one who had made the anonymous phone call. Just as Jun Kyung attacked Soo-in, Cheolman stepped forward to try and stop her. Kangwoo took this opportunity to push him, causing Cheolman and Jun Kyung to crash into each other. Meanwhile, he and Soo-in managed to escape into an abandoned amusement park. Soon, the police and the Grey Division arrived. As they were gearing up to storm the amusement park, one of Cheolman's men secretly put on a raincoat from the back of the trunk. He came to Jun Kyung's van, knife in hand, looking at the imprisoned creature of their kind. In the amusement park, Soo-in told Kangwoo to find a car, and she would handle Jun Kyung herself. Although her surprise attack succeeded in taking Jun Kyung down, she ran into the main force of the Grey Division while trying to escape, getting surrounded by countless soldiers. Meanwhile, Kangwoo tried to sneak around to steal a car, but he encountered Cheolman's man, who had killed Jun Kyung's husband and disguised the wound to make it look like it was done by a parasite. Before dying, the man hit the alarm. Jun Kyung, sensing other parasites, ordered her men to deal with Soo-in as she led a small team outside. Soo-in's internal parasite relinquished control of her body. She collapsed, and Cheolman shielded her from the soldiers' guns. Despite all discouragement, he firmly believed that Soo-in was a normal human and not a parasite. Outside, Jun Kyung soon found her parasitized husband dead. Removing his helmet revealed his original human features. Looking at the man she used to love so dearly, the flames of anger rose within her. Taking the helmet, she returned to the amusement park, ordered her men to take Cheolmin away forcefully, and placed the helmet over Suin's head. A direct confrontation ensued between the parasites and the Grey Division. Watching the soldiers fall one by one to the parasites' tentacles, Jun Kyung couldn't help but smile. Usually, it was difficult to find them when they hid among humans, but now they were delivering themselves right to her doorstep. But the front lines soon discovered an increasing number of parasites, using the terrain of the bridge to hide behind automobiles. The front-line soldiers were quickly falling in pools of blood. Suddenly, Jun Kyung saw a car charging towards a truck in the back. It was then that she realized that the full-force operation by the parasites was a diversion to rescue Suin in the truck. Turns out, after Suin's capture by the Grey Division, no characteristics of parasitic organisms were detected on her. Jun Kyung, having personally seen her extend a tentacle in the amusement park, believed this was due to a lack of understanding of parasites by humans and assumed they had other ways to camouflage. Cheolmin, on the other hand, insisted that Suin wasn't parasitized. When the standoff persisted, their superiors chose to be safe rather than sorry. They ordered to send the human parasite creature to headquarters for more detailed examinations, and asked for the police help in transporting it alongside the Grey Division. Meanwhile, Kangwoo's identity was being investigated by the police. After capturing Kangwoo based on newly found evidences, Cheolmin wanted to take him to the police station, but Kangwoo resisted, because he had seen a parasite disguised as a policeman the day before. That metal-helmeted monster was killed by the aforementioned imposter. Cheolmin immediately showed Kangwoo his phone. That's when Kangwoo found out that his partner was a parasite. For a moment, he couldn't believe it, as his partner's behavior was completely normal. Yet Kangwoo was unaware that his partner had already informed the leader of the parasite organization about Suin's transport route and time. They absolutely can't allow the Grey Division to have a new hound to hunt down their kind. Cheolmin had his own plan. He arranged a Grey Division uniform for Kangwoo for him to sneak in and try to rescue Suin. After Kangwoo snuck into the base, he met Jun Kyung preparing to lead a team, who had assigned him to guard Suin in the container. On the road, Cheolmin suspected his partner after trying to fish out information. However, when the convoy arrived at a bridge, a car accident obstructing the road made them halt. Jun Kyung sent a squad up to check, who were immediately killed by the parasites. All the parasites came out and attacked them. The target was the truck carrying Suin. A parasite pounced on the window, killing the driver inside. Although Jun Kyung was able to kill it, she herself fell to the ground. Kangwoo hushly got off the truck, hoping to steal her card and release Suin, but was discovered and ruthlessly beaten. By then, the parasites had killed their way into the crowd. Lifting up vehicles to block the soldiers' bullets, they threw a sedan car, pushing Kangwoo aside. He picked up the card on the ground and stormed into the carriage. Jun Kyung, meanwhile, was besieged by several parasites, and was fighting hard. At the same time in Suin's consciousness world, she was communicating with her parasite, who called herself Heidi. Perhaps this could be the last direct conversation between them. Suddenly the scene shifted to her childhood home. Suin's father frequently abused her and her mother. To survive, she mustered courage and reported her father to Cheolmin. But that day, she discovered that her neighbors were treating her as a monster, just for daring to report her own father at a young age. However, life didn't get any better afterwards. Her mother left her and married another man. Suin learned of her mother's address from Cheolmin, watching her live a happy life with another man, looking at their child with love shining in their eyes. Yet when her mother saw her standing to the side, her eyes were like those looking at a bug. Suin didn't understand why she, also her mother's biological child, was looked upon with such disgust. Her mother gave her some money, pleading her never to come here again. Then she understood that perhaps she was just repulsive, unable to be loved by anyone, but Heidi comforted her, pointing out there were still people wanting to help her when she sees herself as a monster, such as Cheolmin who always cares for her. Thinking of their past, Suin finally regained her will to live. At this moment, Kangwoo removed her metal helmet, pulling her back to reality. When Kangwoo drove her away, he saw Cheolmin's partner shooting at their car. He immediately recognized him as the parasite infiltrating the police station. At this time, Cheolmin's partner, who was following them, suddenly turned his car and rushed towards another road. Suin sensed danger for Cheolmin, immediately had Kangwoo stop the car and went after him. In front of a house, Cheolmin's partner stopped pretending and revealed his true nature as a parasite. He even tried to convince Cheolmin to join them, but Cheolmin didn't want to become a monster. At this time, the leader of the organization stepped out. Cheolmin drew his gun and shot him, but after the leader fell down, his head seized his body and launched at high speed into Cheolmin's head, cutting it off. By the time Suin arrived, it was already too late. The leader had already parasitized Cheolmin's body. Watching the only person in the world who cared for her die, Suin angrily transformed and threw a steel rod into the leader's head, but the parasitic leader pulled out the rod with his tentacle and began a tentacle combat with Suin. Both sides couldn't determine the victor. Seeing this, the partner also pulled out his gun to assist, only to be rushed off the field by the incoming car driven by Kangwoo, who saved Suin. Cheolmin looked on as they left without any attempts to pursue. He intended to adapt to his new body before taking any action. As for the fleeing Suin, she fell into emotional closure after Cheolmin's death, handing over body control to the parasitic Heidi. In the elevator, Jun Kyon quietly pulled out a pair of scissors and quickly cut the hair of the man in front of her. The man seemed to have noticed something and turned around. Jun Kyon simply excused herself, claiming to have left something behind, and stayed in the elevator. Once the elevator doors closed, she picked up the hair off the floor, confirming that he was a normal human. But why did Suin say they were parasites? Rewinding to a few days prior, after Cheolmin was beheaded and parasitized by the leader of the parasites, he and his partner Won-suk returned to headquarters. The battle on the bridge between the Grey Division and the parasites was witnessed by many and spread widely on the internet. In 2 weeks, a Korean folk music festival was to be held in Busan. The mayor placed great emphasis on this event, which was his last large-scale project during his term. He ordered a large-scale sweep for parasites before the opening to ensure the smooth opening of the music festival. The following day, Won-suk and Cheolmin came to Jun Kyon, claiming they received a tip-off from a concerned citizen who seemed to have discovered a parasite nest in the suburb. After sending a covert team to investigate and returning with some pictures, they confirmed it's a revival society lair. However, Jun Kyon was puzzled. The parasites should know the city is cracking down on parasites, so why haven't they left? Cheolmin believed that the deadline set by the mayor was tight and the public urgently needed news to reassure them they should take care of these parasites as soon as possible. Consequently, headquarters decided to wipe out the lair the following day. That night, Jun Kyon received a call from Suin. She informed Jun Kyon that both Cheolmin and his partner were parasites infiltrating the police station. Upon meeting, she learned that the operation the next day was initiated by them. Suin hypothesized that the so-called nest was a trap. Jun Kyon explained the order had been issued from above, and she had no power to alter the course of the operation. Jun Kyon urged her that if she truly stood on the side of humans, she would go with her tomorrow and then discern whether the place was a trap. However, Heidi, inside Suin, didn't want to entrust her life to them and immediately compelled her body to jump off the building. Heidi warned Kangwoo that Suin's behavior was dangerous and no good for their survival. With Heidi occupying the body for a few days, Suin needed a few hours rest. She warned Kangwoo not to meddle in any dangerous affairs and then fell asleep in the car. However, shortly after, Kangwoo got a call from his best friend saying his sister had come looking for him at his house. It turns out that Cheolmin, after inspecting Suin's x-rays at the police station, concluded that she was a hybrid of human and parasite. He ordered his subordinates to get rid of her and found Kangwoo's friend to coerce him into bringing Suin by threatening his life. Even though Heidi warned him, the kind-hearted Suin couldn't stand to see Kangwoo's friend in danger. As they were escaping, Kangwoo's friend was entangled by Kyung-hee's tentacle. In order to cover for Kangwoo's escape, he threw himself on Kyung-hee, his body pierced with holes. The escaping Kangwoo and Suin warned Jun Kyon once more before the extermination operation began. She decided that they should not hang up but record the phone call during the operation. If there was indeed a trap and she and her subordinates died, this recording would prove Cheolmin and others had been parasitized and they could pass it to her colleague. As the troops stormed the abandoned warehouse, indeed a large number of parasites were hiding inside. The troops surrounded and killed them. Shortly after, Suin and Kangwoo heard the situation and were puzzled. Why would Cheolmin, who was parasitized, allow humans to kill his kind? Soon all the parasites in the warehouse were eradicated. The last one trying to escape was personally killed by Cheolmin, who was standing guard outside. On her way back to base, Kai and he watched her comrade's death on the bus and also realized that the leader occupying Cheolmin's body was the leader of their organization. At this moment, she experienced a human emotion for the first time: betrayal. The success of the extermination operation left Suin perplexed. They clearly saw Cheolmin being parasitized. Why would they kill each other? Then Kangwoo saw the folk music festival poster by the roadside. Suspecting that the leader's objective wasn't merely to occupy Cheolmin's body, but to target the mayor who would personally attend the festival. In this way, they could probably control the entire human society. The extermination operation almost wiped out all the parasites, leaving only the escaped Kai He and the hidden Suin. Cheolmin announced on the news that this operation was very successful, and issued an arrest warrant for Kai He and Suin. Kai He dialed Kangwoo, set up a meeting with Suin at the botanical garden. Without beating around the bush, she expressed her intention to kill the leader, who had betrayed his kind. Now possessing Cheolmin's body, Heidi appeared, thinking her actions were irrational. Wouldn't it be better to survive in another place? But Kai He had been influenced by human thoughts. At this moment, the hidden Kangwoo lunged at Kai He, wanting to avenge his dead friend, only to be choked by her almost instantly.
이 남자를 봐라. 죽을 수 있다는 걸 알면서도 내게 덤벼들었다. 전혀 이성적인 선택이 아니지. 하지만 이제 나는 이 남자의 감정을 이해할 수 있어. 동족들이 그놈에게 죽을 때 알게 됐지.
Their species cannot survive on their own or reproduce. All they can do is parasitize human bodies and consume them. It's an instinct, leaving no other choices. Thus, she often pondered the reasons to continue living. Back then, a member of her kind told her that a lone human might not have all that much strength, but when they band together, they can exhibit astonishing vitality and power. They also had to learn to protect each other, to rely on one another. Thus, the necessity to establish an organization and live together. These words endowed them with a reason for existing, but ironically, that same creature had turned into a demon that massacred its own kind. Though they were once enemies, Suin and Kai He shared a common goal now, which was to kill the leader occupying Cheolmin's body. On the other hand, Jun Kaion was also investigating Cheolmin and his partner secretly. She asked the coroner to review the photos from her deceased husband's autopsy. Although the wounds seemed like traces of a parasite using its body as a weapon, a similar cross-section could also be made with a sharp knife. That meant as long as one used a specially made weapon, the cadaver would seem to have been killed by a parasite. Suin and Kaion He sat in the car at night, patiently waiting. Once the mayor personally arrived at the music festival, Cheolmin transformed and began a massacre. His assistant, Won-suk, performed admirably, pushing Cheolmin into the tent with a cart, then fled with the panicking mayor. When the troops arrived at the tent, they found Cheolmin's body without a head. Only then did Jun Kaion realize something was very wrong. Won-suk escaped with the mayor to a warehouse, where he immediately let the leader's head free. Yet just as their plan was about to succeed, it was interrupted by Kai He. In the fight between the leader and Kai He, Won-suk secretly shot him. Kai He knew she was dying. Once the host dies, she would too. She pushed the mayor and Kangwoo away, urging them to escape, and used her last strength to block the leader. Parasites can't stay out of the human body for too long, and there's only Won-suk left on the scene. A single human. Without hesitation, the leader cut off his head and parasite inside Won-suk's body. Why would Won-suk betray humans to help parasites? It all started from a few months ago when he visited a priest's house. He found the priest had been parasitized, and after watching human society on television, the leader wanted to make a deal with him. He wanted to become the head of human organization. Won-suk had been a policeman for many years, his salary barely enough to support his family. He held a great resentment towards society. This led him to unhesitatingly help parasites in hopes to rebuild human society. Little did he know he would be callously abandoned. During the escape of the mayor, the leader chased him down. Suin arrived in time to fight him together. The leader, still not accustomed to his new body, ran into an exhibition hall when he was on the losing end. He tried to convince Suin with a story while his real body was sneaking behind her. In the nick of time, Jun Kaion followed them. Unbeknownst to her, Won-suk had been parasitized and was aiming a gun at Suin's head. On one hand, Won-suk urged her to kill Suin, while on the other, he planned to ambush Jun Kaion. Just as he was about to succeed, Jun Kyung made the right decision for once. She didn't pay attention to Suwon's tentacle heading towards her. Instead, she shot Won-suk. Both the host and the parasite suffered a heavy blow, subsequently perishing. Heidi fell asleep after telling Jun Kyung about Suwon's view of humans. When her subordinates came to the scene, she lied that Suwon was a regular human, giving her a second chance at life. After everything was over, Suwon returned to her job at the supermarket, while Kangwoo was absorbed by Jun Kyung to work in the gray department. One day, Kangwoo suddenly approached Suwon, hoping she would join the gray department as well, for the death of the leader did not signify the extinction of the parasites. Japan recently suffered a parasite attack, and they dispatched an agent who knew the most about parasites to seek cooperation with Jun Kyung. And so, the story ends here.